You should be grateful to me for marrying into this family and giving birth to an heir. Asking for more is just too greedy.
Even though she lives with us and is a stay-at-home wife, she is treated like a guest, with everything done for her. Our son's wife hasn't changed, even after having children. Then my husband had a serious accident and passed away, but her behavior has been troubling. She will learn what happens when you do something that you couldn't face the daylight for. I'm Teresa, just an ordinary housewife. I had been with my husband, Sam, for about 50 years since we got married, but I recently said goodbye to him, and I haven't had much of an appetite since. I still feel like he might open that door and come in with a smile. I loved my husband, and we had just promised to live long and happy lives together, but that promise was broken so quickly. And it happened for a reason that I just can't accept. Sometimes, I still wonder if there was something I could have done. I love my husband so much now, but I used to be a career woman. When I was young, I loved working and felt that I could live on my own even as a woman. However, maybe because people around me were worried or just impatient, they started suggesting that I try matchmaking. In these matchmaking, you look at a photo, have coffee, and chat. I didn't want my life to be decided by such a vague process, so I kept turning down all the suggestions. One day, my parents must have thought it was getting serious. They offered to buy me a lipstick in a color no one else in town had, so I agreed to go to matchmaking, thinking it would be just a casual date won over coffee. Little did I know that my life would change 180 degrees because of that lipstick. The first impression I had of the man I met at the matchmaking was that he was a cheerful person. He had a smile like a big kid, talked a lot, sometimes said unnecessary things, but was clumsy in an endearing way. I found myself drawn to him, and before I knew it, we were married. We had a boy and a girl. My daughter was charming and seemed to have close friends from a young age, so she got married and moved out quite early. On the other hand, my son had a completely different personality from my husband, even though they were both men. My son has been working at the town office since he graduated high school. He has no outstanding traits and is known mainly for being diligent. As his parents, we understood his good qualities, but society didn't see it that way. He was often described as kind but boring in terms of relationships and social interactions. He didn't have many close friends or romantic interests. Naturally, as he got older, he was still inexperienced and uninterested in relationships with women. However, it seemed he started to admire the idea of marriage after hearing about the weddings of his few high school friends. He would say things like, "I'm too plain and boring for marriage," but he did want to find someone he could love and make us, his parents, happy. He often participated in matchmaking events and singles mixers, organized by the town. At first, I thought it might be good for him to experience a matchmaking like how I met his father, but I decided to let him find his own way without interfering. One day, as spring was approaching, I noticed something different about my son. "Oh, it's rare for you to be like this, Kyle. Did something happen?"
Maybe it's just spring? I feel excited.
He started paying attention to the colors of his clothes and reading catalogs for women's brands. At first, he tried to brush it off, but as his mother, I could tell. When I asked him, he told me he had a girlfriend he was planning to marry. His face was full of happiness as he talked about wanting to file the marriage registration on her birthday.
She has so many hobbies, enjoys every day, and has a sparkling smile. She has a lot of things I don't have, and I want to be with her.
Apparently, he met her at a restaurant near his workplace while having lunch. My son had a habit of eating at the restaurant on Wednesdays and Thursdays, was ordering lunch at his usual spot during his lunch break. One day, she happened to be nearby and struck up a conversation with him, and it took off from there.
I didn't know everyday things could be so fun. If it was just home and work, I wouldn't have realized it.
Oh, Kyle, I'm so happy you found someone like that. Can you introduce her to me?
Of course. Can I bring her over this Sunday? We were planning to go to a cafe, but I'll talk to her. She wants to meet you too, so it should be fine.
I was curious about the woman who had charmed my serious son so much, but I didn't get to meet her on the promised day.
Mom, I'm sorry. Actually, the day before yesterday, she told me she might be late because she had to go to her fave. Since I didn't hear from her after that, I assumed everything was okay.
If she might be late, it can't be helped. It's not your fault, Kyle. You can introduce her another time. As I stood beside my apologetic son, I had a bad feeling. Meeting someone for the first time, especially if they're considering marriage, means that for her, my husband and I would become her in-laws. Generally speaking, it's unlikely for someone to suddenly break a promise without any notice. In the end, I only met her after they had submitted their marriage registration and were officially married.
This is Anna, the girlfriend I told you about and now my wife.
Nice to meet you.
The woman my son married, Anna, had a plain face with no makeup, wore a sweatshirt and jeans, and spoke in a small, mumbled voice. I was shocked because my son had described her as a vibrant person with many hobbies, which was very different from what I expected. As she talked with my son and me, she kept looking into her planner and writing something down. I caught a glimpse of her planner, which was filled with colorful pens and terms like Polaroid photo meeting, fan event, and offline meeting. I had no idea what these words meant. Apparently, she had been living at home and working at a corner store, but she planned to quit her job and become a full-time housewife after getting married. I found it hard to believe that someone who was planning to be a full-time housewife would have such a packed schedule every day. Personally, it's a bit hard to imagine. While talking with my son and me, she kept glancing at the clock and mumbling to herself.
In 30 minutes, the live stream starts. What should I do? Hurry up.
Anna, is there something you need to do after this?
No, it's nothing.
She seemed frustrated and irritable, clearly hoping we would wrap things up quickly. Because of her bad mood, the conversation didn't go anywhere, and we ended the meeting early. My son, who had never shown much interest in women, finally got married and looked genuinely happy. However, Anna's expressions, words, and behavior puzzled me. After hearing about their marriage, the second thing she mentioned was asking to live with us, My son and his wife wanted to save money for the future, and we agreed to help by letting them move in. We had no problem with this arrangement, but I worried about the stress Anna might feel living in a new home as a full-time housewife. They assured us there was no need to worry, and the move was decided quickly. Just 3 days after the decision, Anna had already moved out of her previous home. The slight unease I felt when I first met Anna grew stronger, and I finally understood why. Despite being married, Anna didn't show any signs or behavior typical of a newlywed. She constantly carried around a planner filled with schedules and pictures of a male idol, never letting go of her phone. It's her business what she carries around, but it was concerning that she always looked at her phone, even when talking to me, my husband, or my son. One day, we decided to set some rules for living together comfortably, and Anna was the first to raise her hand.
Even though we live in the same house, let's agree not to interfere with each other's privacy since we're two separate families.
Privacy. I suppose that's fair. Let's make sure to respect each other's space. Using this rule as a shield, she did almost no housework, despite calling herself a full-time housewife. She never took her eyes off her phone, leaving me to prepare meals and clean while my husband handled the heavy chores.
But my waist is delicate and hurts easily.
But having someone over 70 do all the heavy lifting without any help, Anna, that doesn't seem right. I wish you'd help occasionally.
Are you saying it's okay for me to hurt my waist? That's terrible. Did you forget our agreement not to interfere in each other's household matters?
She yelled in a loud voice, completely unlike her usual mumbling, and started shouting without warning. Given how things were, we couldn't have a proper conversation, and time just passed by. Soon, Anna started staying in the storage shed in the backyard. I could see the glow of the TV and hear her shouting someone's name. It was probably the male idol whose photo she always carried around. It was like the storage shed became Anna's personal room. There was no effort to make sure we all lived comfortably together, and she only thought about how to make her own life easier, which made us uncomfortable. But my son couldn't say much to Anna and always seemed indecisive.
Anna is struggling to adjust to this new environment. I'll help with the housework when I get home from work.
But she does nothing around the house during the day and stays alone in the shed. I'm worried because I hear her shouting.
I'll talk to her. Don't worry.
Somehow, Anna got pregnant. She had severe morning sickness and threatened premature labor, so she was mostly in the hospital during her pregnancy, but I remember feeling relieved when she gave birth. Until now, even though she did nothing as a housewife, we managed everything, so she didn't face any problems. But now, with a child, she needed to act as a mother. There were plenty of adults in the house, but no one could replace the mother. I hoped she realized that the period of being a guest and having everything done for her was over. But my hopes were in vain, and her behavior didn't change even after childbirth. It seemed to get worse. She often left the baby with my son or us and went out. When my grandchild was about a year old, she disappeared overnight and returned in the morning, and I finally had to say something. How can you leave without a word and come back in the morning with a child at home? You need to be responsible.
What? Are you bossing me around? I married into this family and gave birth to an heir. I get that you should be grateful, but demanding this and that is too much.
She said that while still relying on us.
It's too rural here to travel easily. I want to save taxi money for goods, so drive me.
It was selfish, but arguing wouldn't help, so I did as she asked. I couldn't understand what my son saw in her. While I was feeling stressed and distrustful of Anna, something happened. One day, I had a town meeting and asked my husband to take care of things at home while I'm gone. Anna seemed to be in the shed as usual, so I called out to her from outside and left. When I came back after the meeting, I found my husband collapsed at the bottom of the stairs. He couldn't move and seemed to be in pain. As I panicked, Anna came out of the next room.
Sam, hang in there. I can't believe this happened while I was at home. I've already called an ambulance, so hold on.
Anna seemed surprised, but she quickly took charge.
Sam, the ambulance is here. I'll ride with you. Teresa, you stay here.
It was such a remarkable act for someone who usually stayed in the shed and spoke harshly to us. I thought my husband would recover and be discharged soon, but his hospital stay extended beyond expectations. He wasn't used to the hospital and seemed to weaken both mentally and physically. When I visited him, I saw a frail version of my husband I had never seen before. Next to him were Anna and my grandchild, already visiting.
I couldn't stand seeing him get weaker every day, so I came to see him.
My husband looked at the scene with an expression of horror, but something about Anna's actions didn't sit right with me. Anna, who almost never left the shed, came out of the adjacent room that day. It was as if she knew about my husband's condition. Additionally, she handled the ambulance call and the hospital paperwork with a surprising level of efficiency, almost as if she was familiar with the process. My husband seemed to want to go home, but at the same time, he appeared reluctant. Eventually, he could barely eat and quickly passed away. With his injury and sudden death, there were many things to worry about, but I had no time to dwell on them. I was more shocked than I had imagined and couldn't function properly.
Teresa, don't be too sad. Let my husband and me handle the funeral.
Okay, I'm not feeling well, so please take care of it. Since my husband's injury, Anna had become unexpectedly reliable. She no longer seemed like the person who kept her distance from the family. Anna efficiently coordinated with the funeral home and planned everything.
Unlike my husband, who worked outside, I spent a lot of time at home and relied on Sam for everything. Let me repay him this last time.
Anna said this while tearing up, but my grandchild started fidgeting and ran off as if escaping something. He ran so fast that I lost sight of him. On the day of the funeral, my son and his family attended. Since my husband had been living with our grandchild, Dylan, since birth, he adored him. Dylan also loved his grandfather dearly. At 5 years old, he probably understood the concept of a funeral and that he wouldn't see his beloved grandfather again. However, my grandchild seemed unusually restless. Perhaps Anna didn't want to scold him in front of so many people, fearing it would draw attention. She gently hugged him from behind
come on, Dylan, say your last goodbye to Grandpa.
It's not the last. Don't touch me. You're scaring me.
My usually calm grandchild suddenly started to act out violently. The commotion was so unusual that everyone noticed and started murmuring. Dylan shouted loudly, trying to be heard over the noise.
Grandpa says Mommy pushed him down the stairs.
My 5-year-old grandchild pointed at the portrait of my husband and declared this. Everyone was shocked and started speculating. Anna looked down for a moment but quickly raised her head and responded firmly.
He has been watching too much anime lately and says things like this. I'm sorry, it's my fault for not educating him properly. I'll talk to him later.
With that, the murmuring subsided. But then, Dylan ran out of the funeral hall. A few people went after him but soon returned, having lost track of him. Despite the incident, the funeral proceeded as planned. The final step was the closing of the coffin. As people placed flowers inside and said their final goodbyes, Dylan came running back with scissors. He stopped the person who was about to nail the coffin shut and tried to retrieve a fanny pack my husband was wearing inside the coffin.
Dad, get Grandpa's pouch from his waist.
He was frantically trying to cut the belt of the fanny pack with scissors while shouting. But Anna gently tried to calm him down.
You know, Grandpa always wore this pouch because it was important to him. He wants to take it to heaven.
Mom, you're a liar. He didn't say that. Dad, help me quickly.
Sensing that there was a reason behind his usually quiet child's behavior, my son rushed to the coffin and helped remove the fanny pack. Anna, who had been standing there doing nothing, reached out for the pouch as soon as it was off.
No, don't touch that pouch.
Anna's attempt to grab the pouch seemed too eager and unnatural. My son, having his own suspicions from her past behavior, brushed Anna's hand away and handed the pouch to Dylan.
Dylan, what's in this pouch? Why are you so insistent?
Grandpa tells me to help him.
Dylan quickly emptied the pouch right there, ignoring Anna's loud scolding.
Stop it, you're making Grandpa sad. Do you want to ruin the funeral?
Grandpa tells me to do this. Don't get in my way.
Ignoring Anna's voice, Dylan methodically opened every pocket. The last pocket he reached for was a hidden one that I didn't even know existed. Inside was a slightly larger pen. Dylan took the pen and ran to the person with the computer near the funeral room.
Open this cap and connect it to that machine.
Naturally, I didn't know about this pen, and neither should Dylan. Moreover, since my son and his wife rarely used a computer at home, Dylan shouldn't know how to use one. But given his confident actions, I couldn't help but believe in some mysterious force. What we thought was a pen was actually a voice recorder, and we could hear a clear recording of Anna and my husband struggling.
Hurry up and die, old geezer. Just leave the money and go away. As long as you're gone, he'll be the head of the family, so you're in the way.
It was clearly Anna's voice, filled with vile curses. We also heard the sound of my husband falling. Anna, how could you? Why would you do this?
It wasn't me, I don't know anything. Teresa, you saw me taking care of Sam when he was injured, in the hospital, and during the funeral. Do you still think it's me? Poor Dylan shouldn't have to see his mom being blamed.
Anna continued to claim her innocence, acting like a devoted daughter-in-law. Her performance was infuriating. As I pondered how to confront her, Dylan suddenly spoke.
I know what you did. I saw you put oil on the stairs while I was at daycare and heard you say you wanted to get rid of Grandpa.
Stop making up stories. If you don't, the boogeyman will come for you.
Anne initially used her son as a shield, but his words made her attitude change drastically.
Grandpa told me to run away because I'm next. Mom, stay away from me.
Dylan grabbed a paper and pen and started writing. Even though he was only 5, he wrote quickly and confidently. When we looked at the paper, my son and I were shocked. In my husband's handwriting, it read, "If anything happens to Dylan, I will curse you. Be prepared."
Stop it, please stop. I had no other choice.
Rejected by her own child and cornered, Anna finally confessed everything. Why did you do this? What did you want so badly that you'd hurt someone?
I wanted to help Sean more. Sean was everything to me.
I was momentarily surprised by the man's name, but then remembered it was the name of a popular idol. As the story unfolded, it became clear that it all started with her desire to spend more money on her favorite idol.
I'd do anything for Sean. I realized I could make more money if I married someone wealthy.
So, you approached me and wanted to marry me not because you loved me, but for Sean?
Of course, who would marry a boring, dull guy like you out of love?
Anna originally married my son for his money, targeting him for his stable job and presumed wealth. But my son's earnings weren't enough, and she wanted more, thinking insurance money was the quickest solution.
I wanted to be recognized by Sean, but my husband's earnings weren't enough. I needed more money to get closer to Sean.
You wanted insurance payout to meet Sean, not just my earnings?
Meeting him costs money. Photos, handshakes, everything costs money. I can't lose to other fans.
My son was necessary for living expenses, but Anna saw that more money could come from my husband's life insurance. If something happened to him, it would likely be shared between her mother-in-law, her husband, and her sister-in-law, but most of the money would stay in the family. In that situation, Anna thought she would be able to use the money freely. She also thought that once I passed away, my son would become the head of the family. Anna said that if that were to happen, she would be able to use the household money however she wanted, meaning she could spend as much as she liked on her favorite idol. My son, fully awakened by the incident, immediately started the process for divorce.
I admired how passionate you were about your interests when we married. But I never imagined you'd harm someone for that. We can't live together anymore, especially for our son's sake.
Wait, I love my idol, but you love me for who I am, right? We married because of love, and now you want to divorce just like that.
Even after all this, Anna believed my son loved her deeply, showing her stubbornness.
I believe what Dylan says and that he sees my father. The thought of our son being next terrifies me.
That's just a moment of madness. I've let you handle everything, but now I'll change and raise Dylan properly. I should have custody.
Anna's claim to custody and lack of awareness of her absurdity were astonishing.
If you divorce me, where will I live? The one who initiates divorce must pay for the other's living expenses, right? With Dylan, I'll have child support and allowances, so I guess I'll manage. Fine, I'll agree to the divorce, but you might not survive.
You see, Dylan is nothing but money. It's sad to think of him growing up with you. Custody isn't always with the mother, and I won't let someone who hurts others have my child.
Then the police contacted us for an investigation, including our home. A distant relative at the funeral was a police officer and helped expedite the process. The investigation revealed injuries and dents inconsistent with a simple fall, and the audio evidence confirmed Anna pushed him. Without us needing to press charges, Anna was taken by the police that day. Anna would face the consequences of her actions. My son had her sign the divorce papers and submitted them immediately, becoming a single father, raising his child alone. Although my beloved husband wouldn't return, I found happiness living with my son and adorable grandchild. The pain of loss and precious time couldn't be regained, but I looked forward to my grandchild's future. Since the incident, Dylan's mysterious abilities weakened, and he talked less about his grandfather, but I chose to focus on the happiness ahead.